I was diving into my postseason work for the Trailblazers wrap-up season, and I was like, Scoot Henderson's been playing better. I wonder just exactly how much better. And as I started digging into it, I was like, man, he's been even better than I thought he was, and I think so much of it has to do with it being a stark contrast to how bad he was to start the season.
He was really bad. And I think that's where a lot of people started turning off the Portland Trailblazers. Not watching or checking in here and there and not following every single game, watching Scoot Henderson and watching him grow, because when he got dinged up and then we saw that big slide, that is when all of the information started coming out about viewership being down, losing 43% of the households that could actually see the Portland Trailblazers. Wasn't that what it was? 43%?
So they ended up losing essentially 50%. It was overall 66% of their total Comcast audience.
Yeah.
And 50% of their total cable audience.
And of just people who didn't have access to the games, and then people that did have access, we started seeing those numbers. I mean, not a lot of people were following them as the season was wrapping up. But the last, really 20 games, and Joe Cronin even mentioned his last 20 yesterday, but I saw you had a tweet where you pulled up his last 15 games in what he had done in his last 15. He was a far different player, and there's a lot of reasons why that was. It was because, look, he's putting up pretty good, ridiculous numbers in games where they were losing by a lot of points, and some would call those hollow and throw that out there. But the reality of it is that we saw a young man that looked like a different player at the end of the year than at the beginning of the year.
And here's where it starts and ends, okay? His first 15 games, I had to go through and find the range for this. Scoot Henderson's first 15 games. He played 26.4 minutes a night. He averaged 11.1 points, 4.5 assists, 2.7 rebounds on 37, 24, 72 splits.
Okay.
His final 15 games, 19.1 points per game, 7.9 assists, 3.9 rebounds on 41, 39, 81 splits.
Okay. I think the best thing that you can get out of that is his 3-point shooting splits went up. His volume still isn't anywhere near it, but being at 39% as a rookie for a guy who can't shoot is a lot better. Look, it was bolstered by Friday night, if we're being honest.
But again, that was because he started to take, and you saw it down the stretch. He started to take and make shots off the dribble, which we did not see to start the season.
Step back three, even.
He
had a couple step back threes.
He had 40 total step back threes coming into the game Thursday night. I know this because I looked it up ahead of time because I was wondering where he was on that. He took 6 step back threes over the next 2 nights.
Oh,
and it was like,
that's good.
Oh, I asked him about it after the game. I was like, hey, was that something you were working on, or is that something that just happened naturally? And he goes, honestly, I just felt more comfortable. And I think that's the key. Not just the step backs, but he just felt more comfortable. And that's what I think you saw. He still had issues with turnovers. He still has issues finishing. He has plenty of things to work on. But the question is, did the final 15 games convince you that there is something there?
No, but it's incomplete. The final 15 games aren't going to be something that sways me one way or the other.
Why do you think the first 15 games swayed so many people then?
Well, they didn't sway me. The question was me, and it didn't sway me.
But I'm asking, why do you think that was, though?
Because it was the start and more eyeballs were on it.
It's fair.
And people actually watched it. And there was an excitement to see what the Blazers had in Scoot Henderson, and you get the top 3 pick. You trade one of the, if not the greatest Blazer to ever put a uniform on. You trade him knowing that this is going to be the replacement. Whether that is a fair or unfair comp, that's exactly what it will be for Scoot Henderson in his career, is that Damian Lillard was shown the door and he was brought in. And there were a bunch of eyes on him at that point where people saw those first 15 games and said, yeah, this ain't it. This isn't what Dame was when he walked into the league. But also that's an unfair comp because Dame played for 4 years in college, was a pure shooter coming out of college, and Scoot Henderson is 19 years old and not a shooter to begin with. They're two completely different players. This year, it was with the amount of injuries, with the amount of starting lineups that were in and out, guys coming in and out. This was, I said it last week, it was a lost year for Shaedon Sharpe because we could have seen actual substantial growth from Shaedon, and unfortunately, injuries got in the way of that. With the way that the complete roster was, I didn't learn one way or another if Scoot Henderson's going to be a dude in the NBA or not. I mean, and I don't think anybody can tell you one way or another, yes or no, because this team around him isn't good enough to get an answer for that. And he's only 1 year into the NBA. It was a roller coaster, man.
Well, and I think your average fan, regardless of him being, a project and out of the G League, your average NBA fan, they're just going to expect a lot out of the number 3 pick in the draft off the bat. And so that's how, you get that kind of a perception of, oh boy.
Well, here's the interesting thing. Coming into this season, I made wrote the article, and we've talked about it God knows how many times. The number of teenage rookie point guards is very finite. It's 24 total players in NBA history. 3 have averaged 15 and 5. You know what he ended the season with? 14 and 5. He just missed that cut.
Yeah.
He would have been the 4th rookie point guard to ever do it. And he would have joined Stephon Marbury, Kyrie Irving, LaMelo Ball. So he just misses that cut. And when you look at, I was wondering where his final January to end of season run would put him, just to kind of get an idea. Okay, let's go January 1 forward. Since the turn of the calendar, Scoot averaged 29 minutes a night, averaged 15 points, 5.8 assists, 3.3 rebounds on 39, 34, 82 splits. And I was like, okay, let's take a look at rookies that have ever averaged 15, 5, and 3. There have been 30 rookies ever across all positions in NBA history to average 15, 5, and 3, which is essentially where he landed if you remove the first 3 months of the season, which all that I did was take 1 point away, essentially. 1 point. That's how poor the first 2 months were, because he averaged 11.1 until he kind of figured some stuff out. You take a look at who he kind of comps to. You see John Wall, you see Cade Cunningham, Allen Iverson, Russell Westbrook, Dennis Smith Jr., and Brandon Jennings. All in the same group. And you and I were talking before the show, what did a player like John Wall look like with the same kind of stats post-January, once he kind of figured some stuff out? Okay? John Wall, from January 1st on of his rookie year in 2010-2011, 16.6, 8.3, 4.9.
So but consistency is kind of, for the people that did watch Scoot, consistency is the big one, and Wall's numbers were consistent from start to finish.
Yes, they were.
And I think that, again, I'm not going to take 1 year from a 19-year-old rookie and say one way or the other, whether he's the statistical comps are great, but at the same time, we have to look at who you're playing alongside of as well, and the competitiveness of your team as well. And I think that both of those things, the competitiveness of the Blazers we saw was not there this year. From 30-point losses, 40-point losses, 60-point losses, like it was a non-competitive season. And it context and flow of a game really does dictate how you play, right? And that's why I'm not selling any stock on Scoot. I'm not buying anymore though. I'm holding right now.
That's fair. A hold call, I think, is fair.
And I think that overreactions one way or the other. I mean, the guy had to go through and just figure it out on the fly because, look, also the big wrenches that were thrown in injury-wise to this team, it really affected him early in those first 3 months that you were talking about. And it would affect any player, let alone a rookie playing in the NBA for the first time. But at the same time, when he started getting more comfortable and getting, used to life in the NBA, we did see a bit of a roller coaster. It was up and down, to be expected from a rookie. And I have more of a problem with the people that are saying Scoot is horrible, can't be relied on.
Yes.
Because we just don't know yet.
And that's the thing, is that was kind of like,
but I'm not going to hold him up to comping him to John Wall. I'm not
I
going to
think
do that.
statistically you can't. And that's the thing, is we're thinking, when you think John Wall, when you think Russell Westbrook, when you think Allen Iverson, when you think even Cade Cunningham, you're thinking about what they are now or what they were at their primes, not what they were in their rookie years. Because you go back, most guys, with the exception of Wemby and LeBron, they suck as rookies.
Look, I think that the fact that he is replacing Damian Lillard, who as a rookie was the rookie of the year, those are such huge shoes to fill.
Yes, and the context is so different, because one is a 19-year-old, one's 22, almost 23.
With 4 years of college and an elite shooter coming out of college.
And had run 10,000 pick and rolls by the time he got to the NBA.
I still have plenty of questions.
Oh, absolutely.
He needs to be able to shoot to be a point guard in the NBA. It's 2024.
And if not, he needs to develop as one of the elite finishers in the league.
And he is neither one of those things.
And that's
right
thing,
now.
and those are the questions. But I found it interesting that despite evidence, everyone kind of freaked out about the first 15 games more so than they did the final 15 games.
Yeah, because again, I think that just goes to people watched then and people didn't watch at the end.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. And then also, this is a good text on the text line. Cronin said Scoot was a generational player that was too good to possibly pass up, but also such a generational player, no one would trade for that pick to get him. He's not generational.
Well, that's
like I do believe
that's not true.
There is. So what part of it?
That nobody was willing to trade for that pick, because there were packages that were on the table.
Okay, but I mean, not worth giving up, because whatever they were going to get was not going to be enough to keep Damian Lillard here. And I think that's the
I don't
point
think
of,
it has to do with keeping Dame here. I think that even if you made a deal for a major impact player, you had to make 2 more moves to make the roster make sense, as opposed to that.
How is that different from where they're at right now, though? Because they're still they have multiple moves to make, even by keeping the pick. I don't think he is a generational player. I feel comfortable in saying
I think
Scoot is not a generational player.
I think he's a generational prospect, and that's a totally fair thing to say.
A generational prospect.
Yes, it wasn't just
NBA wise.
You can say Joe Cronin all you want. You can go across the NBA. Across the NBA. Scouts, executives, GMs, assistant GMs had him marked as a generational point guard prospect. Absolutely, unequivocally. Unequivocally.
Boy. Well, then what were those trade packages that were on the table? Like, can you, without giving names, what type of player?
All-star caliber player.
All-star caliber player was on?
And all-star. For sure. A certified absolute all-star.
Well,
on the table.
Well, that would have been something that I think Blazer fans would have wanted to listen to.
So, yeah, there were offers that were on the table. But making that move, you now have no assets left. And that move wasn't going to get you over that hump.
But in what you're saying, so you bring in an all-star player, that wouldn't have kept Dame here in your mind?
No.
Okay, then the Dame package still would have been available, so assets would have been there in return, because the Dame trade still did happen.
Yeah, but now you're in the exact same position, and you don't have anything else going forward.
But an all-star player, an all-star caliber player.
Sure, but you don't have any rookie scale deals or anything else to go off of.
This team right now has got, the 12th highest payroll heading into next year?
Yes,
and 0 all-stars.
Yes, with the contracts on the books for all 4 draft picks. Yes.
Yeah.
Which
that's not.
Come July 1st.
They got 14 guys on the roster and 4 draft picks. I
will be willing to wager a significant amount of money that will not be the case.
Yeah, and I think that what we're looking at though is, regardless of the move that would have been made, there would have still been.
Yes,
in the same spot.
That's
they are.
My point is that it didn't matter. And that's the thing, is like the whole idea of that's why they didn't make the move, because it behooved them to reset entirely.
Yeah.
To have a rookie scale deal, to have a guy that you had the runway with to build forward.
Yep.
And I think Scoot's going to be good. I just don't think he's going to be great.
Well, and he improved this year. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is he's not a generational player. I mean, the generational prospect thing, that is rarefied air.
It's not, though. It's not. Like,
well, quite
that's
literally,
why you take
the
a
term
point guard
generational is rarefied air.
How many
It's once in a generation.
How many point guards get taken top 3?
Yes. But the thing is, like, a generational prospect should be like, that is rarefied air. Like, that is once in a generation.
My point being,
yeah,
when you're taking a player top 3, Markelle Fultz was a generational prospect.
Yeah.
That's why they traded for him to go number 1.
Yeah, I think what we're talking about here, the word generational gets thrown out too much.
That's fair.
Yeah. I think that's where
entirely
we're at.
fair.
I think that's where we're
When
at.
when you talk about generational, at least in NBA parlance, when they're talking about as a prospect, it's a guy who has the capability of being all NBA. Because all NBA is rare. It's incredibly rare. And I think that was what, when you looked at Scoot Henderson, that's what people saw.
And the bigger point that people don't want to acknowledge, or there's a large swath of people that don't want to acknowledge, Scoot Henderson improved tremendously from November to where we are right now. And you cannot deny he developed so much and improved so much from November to here we are in April.
And that's the question, is if you look at Scoot Henderson and you believe in the makeup and the DNA and how hard he works, that he will figure something out. Now, to what level and to what extent, that's the question.
Yeah. And you know what? If you're out on Scoot, sell the stock and you'll be pleasantly surprised when you actually watch game next year.
It's a fun little upside.
It is.
It's a fun little thing.
And hopefully it'll be on, network, over the air television and not on some super platinum premium cable channel that'll be on the auxiliary of the regional cable network for most of the games. Hopefully it'll be on a readily available channel where a lot of people can see it.
Where you can watch them either succeed or fail. What a concept.
Yep.
All right, coming up next,